It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
All right, happy Wednesday. I'm senior meteorologist Wesley Williams, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. Today we've got a lot to get to about the dangerous heat that's on tap for today and the possible severe storms that could be on the way for tomorrow morning. And we'll finish up the video later with a quick check on the tropics. So without further ado, let's get started with that first alert for you today. Heat advisory that's going into place by 10 o'clock Wednesday morning will continue to 7 o'clock Wednesday evening. And we can see the heat index getting up to dangerous levels, 110 degrees. You know, it's really interesting when you can get hot weather in the summer. I know a lot of people kind of say, you know, no duh, right? It's summer, it's supposed to be hot. And this is true. However, there are some summer days that are even hotter than your usual summer heat. Bam, that's today. And that's why we want to draw your extra attention to that, so that if you're planning on doing the typical things people do outside, spending a long time lying down at the beach, going for a midday jog, maybe you are working on a rooftop or doing some construction work, riding a delivery truck or van, you know, those are things that people spend a long time outside exposed to the elements for. And those are going to be the people that notice the greatest risk of heat-related illness. You might notice your body exhibiting more signs or symptoms of that. This also goes for people who, you know, play sports. You got some yard work. I could go on and on about the number of activities that keep people outside and exposed to these conditions. So make that extra effort today to practice those common sense heat safety tips, like drinking plenty of water, staying out of that direct sunlight, seeking shade whenever possible, and of course, soaking up as much air conditioning as you can. Let's take a look at the specific information for South Mississippi. High temperatures are forecast to reach the mid-90s by the beaches, upper 90s north of I-10. You will note that the chance for rain today is still not 0%, even though I think it will be the lowest chance we will have seen so far this week. Now you're looking at your town and your community on the map. We're going to slow this down for you. So you can see a place like Orange Grove has a high of 95 today. Bay St. Louis also looking at a high of 95, as well as DeLille and Diamond Head. We can see a high of 94 near the airport in Gulfport, 93 in Biloxi, south of Back Bay, 95 in D'Iberville, 96 in Woolmarket, as well as Lyman. In Jackson County, we're also looking at temperatures in the mid to upper 90s in most areas. Ocean Springs, a high of 93, Pascagoula, Gaucher, 95, 96 respectively. Van Cleve, 96, Moss Point, 96. LaRue, could be coming close to 100. The information that we're looking at shows a high of 98 degrees there, so pretty swelteringly hot. We're also noticing the sweltering heat taking over most of those areas north of I-10, including our inland counties like Pearl River County, Stone County, and George County, where high temperature is going to be just a couple of degrees, maybe a few degrees away from 100. You might notice the heat advisory that's in place does not officially include Stone and George counties. And we remind you this each year that Stone and George counties are controlled by a separate National Weather Service office in Mobile that uses different criteria for their weather alerts. And their criteria to issue a heat advisory is different from the rest of the coast. So that's the only reason you're noticing that. But I still think you'll have a pretty decent risk of seeing heat index numbers climbing over 105. And no matter where you are in our 6 southernmost counties, this kind of gives you a snapshot, a general idea. We'll see variation by location, but the main story is going to see the triple-digit heat index today around midday. And this continues into the afternoon, and at times it could come close to 110 degrees. Anytime you have the heat index around 110 degrees, things like heat exhaustion, things like heat stroke, you can start to notice your body exhibiting some of those symptoms and signs of those heat-related illnesses if you're not taking the common sense heat safety precautions. So make that extra effort today to do so. and that way we'll all make it out of Wednesday safe. Now, we talked a lot this first part of the video about the dangerous heat, and now we're going to focus on rain chances. Today's rain chances, spotty, but the chances will increase tonight into tomorrow, and there could also be some strong thunderstorms in the mix as well. So we'll take a look at this pattern that could be shifting for us as we move into the next 24 to 36 hours, from the spotty showers and storms on Wednesday to maybe a little bit more widespread rain heading into Wednesday night, overnight, and Thursday. Here's the spotty rain coverage for Wednesday, by the way. This morning's rain chance only 10%, and then this afternoon's rain chance only 20% by the beaches and 30% for areas to the north of Interstate 10. And you can see how spotty some of those are. I will say, when the temperatures are as hot as they are today, sometimes thunderstorms ingest that heat energy and they can get a little strong. So there might be a few isolated downpours. If anyone sees any rain today, just note some of the downpours could become somewhat intense in isolated spots. But the reason for the increase in rain chance by early Thursday is actually because there's going to be this ring of fire-like pattern, where during the summer season you can hear this pattern that meteorologists refer to as a ring of fire pattern. At the middle of that ring, you have a ridge of high pressure, a hot high pressure, and then around the edge of that hot high pressure, you have these rain showers and storms kind of circulating in a clockwise fashion around that. And the thinking is that we, over the next 24 hours, might wind up finding some rain and storms developing somewhere near the Carolinas. And while those are located east of us, you would think, well, that has nothing to do with us, right? They're just going to move out into the Atlantic. However, the key here is that high pressure and the clockwise wind circulation around that high, which helps to steer the rain and storms from the Carolinas down toward Georgia and steer them perhaps from Georgia toward the west, perhaps toward portions of Mississippi and or Louisiana. We've got a couple of different computer models that shows this occurring, but our computer models are differing on the precise timing of when this could move into the South Mississippi area. What you're looking at here is the future radar overlaid on top of the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather risk map. So that yellow color you see is where the Storm Prediction Center indicates that there's going to be some damaging thunderstorms in that area somewhere. That's a level 2 area of severe weather, and that is a place that damaging thunderstorms are possible. Now, outside of that, in South Mississippi, we are in the level 1 area, a lower risk level, a lower probability of seeing damaging storms, but it's not zero, right? So damaging storms can't be completely ruled out where we are on the map for times from today into early Thursday. Now we can look at the timing. Now that you understand the risk and the probability, we have a very low probability of severe weather in South Mississippi, but it's not zero. But notice the timing on this as these clusters of thunderstorms are steered around that ridge of high pressure into Georgia, into the northern Gulf, and then they're steered westward as we go to early Thursday toward Alabama and Mississippi. This model scenario, this computer model, we'll call it scenario 1, shows those showers and storms moving into South Mississippi around Thursday morning, maybe around 8, 9, or 10 o'clock in the morning. So around late morning, right? Now, a second model scenario, the timing is different. Those storms are moving a bit faster, and as they move more quickly, they could get into South Mississippi earlier, maybe around or just before sunrise Thursday. So you can see model scenario, a different computer model, we'll call it scenario number 2, shows those thunderstorms moving into South Mississippi, like I said, around or before sunrise on Thursday. So regardless of the exact timing, it does look like Thursday morning seems to be that most likely time when we would begin to see this increase in rain chance, not really before midnight, but instead after midnight Thursday morning. So we'll call it about 3 a.m. would be the earliest that we would see this. It could be later than that, depending on which model scenario is more accurate. But as early as 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, the showers and storms could increase our rain chances in or near South Mississippi. And some of them could be on the strong side, producing some thunderstorm threats like frequent lightning, isolated heavy downpours, and can't even rule out some gusty winds or some hail the size of a quarter or larger. So those are going to be some of those hazards, some impacts, potential impacts that we monitor. The risk of tornado at this moment in time appears to be near zero, so it's unlikely and not expected for us to have to deal with the risk of tornado. So that's at least one piece of good news there. All right, we're at the very end of the video. A very quick look at the tropics. So yesterday, the first named storm of 2025 formed. It was Andrea, and it lasted a whopping 12 hours long. That storm has already fallen apart as of Wednesday morning. I think it fell apart around 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock Tuesday night, even though it formed around 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. Now, it seems like this has been a while that we've had to wait for the A-named storm. The last time that a A-named storm formed this late was in 2014 when Arthur formed in early July. So, does not happen that often. Clearly, it's been more than a decade since we've seen a storm, the first storm, form this late into hurricane season. Before Arthur of 2014, you got to go back to Alex of 2004. That storm, people had to wait until August for the A-named storm of that year. Some of you might be wondering, okay, well, hurricane season starting later, does that mean the season will be better or worse? And the answer is that however late a season starts, it does not directly impact whether a season will be better or worse. The current map for the Gulf, Caribbean, and Atlantic show the remnants of Andrea in the North Atlantic near the Azores, moving away from Bermuda toward the Azores, the chain of islands that sits west of Europe. And fortunately, you don't find anything else to track in the Gulf, the Caribbean, or the Atlantic. For the next 7 days, the National Hurricane Center are not expecting any new systems to really form based on the current information. So that's good news there. By the numbers, we got your stats for hurricane season 2025 so far. Remember, the forecast calls for 13 to 19 storms. So if we have now used up one of those storms with Andrea, so far we got one, that means that there are 12 to 18 left. So got a long way to go. By November 30th, we're expecting 12 to 18 more named storms. Fortunately, this season is, at this point in time, pretty close to what happened last year. We had one named storm by June 25th, and it's also pretty close to normal. Normally, you have one named storm by June 25th. So, not too out of the ordinary now that we've got that one named storm there. Well, that'll pretty much do it for this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. I hope that you have a wonderful Wednesday. And remember to stay cool, stay hydrated from the dangerous heat. We'll catch you again next time. So until then, take care.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.